Hello everyone, good morning. Can you all hear me? Hello,
Good morning.
good morning. Can you hear me? All right, thank you very much. Welcome to class, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to the third, if I'm not mistaken, the third class for our week six of the JIIPCC mentorship and internship program. In today's class, um, discussing we'll be discussing fundraising for startups. Right, we'll be having two sessions today, fundraising for startups and then our HR clinic later today in the evening. And we want to encourage every single person to try as much as possible to make yourself available for those sessions. Please, I want to encourage us to take classes as serious as we can. Please, I would need some help sending reminders to your different subgroups, letting your other co-mentees know that the session has started. Welcome to class once again. And in today's class, like I mentioned, we'll be discussing fundraising for startups. My name is Dennis Williams, and I will be your moderator for today. So, just to kickstart, like we usually do, I will go straight to introducing the mentors that we are expecting in today's class. Okay, our first mentor for today that we'll be having in the session is Mrs. Rafiat Dabiri. Mrs. Rafiat is a dedicated and results-driven program manager with a passion for philanthropy and social impact, currently serving as the fundraising manager of Wealth Managers of Al Mubarak Wealth Foundation. Rafiat brings over a decade of experience in project management across various sectors, including agriculture, food production, and non-profit organizations. Rafiat's commitment to social responsibility is evident in her work and other voluntary activities with various NGOs, where she focuses on women's development, empowerment rather, and implements initiatives to support out of school orphans. Her experience in Zakat administration and wealth management um, showcases her dedication to leveraging Islamic financial principles for community development. A lifelong learner, Rafiat holds an MBA and various professional certifications in fundraising management and humanitarian leadership from the Lilly School of Philanthropy at Indiana University and Zakat Foundation Institute of America. She is currently pursuing further education in philanthropy studies with the Lilly School of Philanthropy at Indiana University. Rafiat's unique blend of project management skills, philanthropy experience, philanthropic experience, and passion for social impact makes her a valuable contributor to discussions on effective non-profit management, sustainable development, and innovative approach to addressing societal challenges. I'm not sure if we have her yet on the call. I'm just trying to check through. Okay, I don't think she's on the call yet, but I'm sure once she's able to join us, we will be having her. Um, Next, for our mentors, let me just quickly display his profile. Is going to be Mr. Max Ikombe. Mr. Max Ikombe is the founder slash principal of Everlaw. He works extensively in field of arbitration, ICT slash technology law, and intellectual property. Max is a facilitator on the annual Information Technology and the Law course of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies since 2016. He has trained in advanced intellectual property law courses at the World Intellectual Property Organization Academy and is an accredited agent of the Nigerian Trademark and Patent Registry and has conducted IP registration there since 2010. So thank you, Mr. Marks. Mr. Marks, like I just to point out, is one of the mentors a mentor we have on the fintech and the IP course. All right, he has been such a wonderful mentor so far in those classes, and we hope that when he comes on board, he will be able to run us through the topic for today. So please, I want to just kind of let us run through our agenda for today, what we'll be doing in class. All right, so we'll be taking presentation in today's class. We'll be having presentations from the FinTech group, group one and group two. They will be helping us run through presentation later on. But we'll start out with mentors presentation, and then we will eventually move on to mentees presentation, feedback from mentors, and then feedback from mentees. Just the usual way our classes, our sessions usually run. So just give me a minute. Let me see if we can get our mentors on board so that we can officially commence this session. All right, so sorry about the delay. We are just working on trying to get our mentors on the call. So sorry about that delay. They will be joining us shortly. So like I mentioned, we are expecting to take or we'll be taking presentation in today's session. So what I am trying to do or what we'll be trying to do is we'll be taking I'll be trying to run through the presentations. I would want the members of FinTech Group 1, the presenters, if they are in session, to maybe kindly help us run through the presentation first while we wait for our mentors to join in on the call. Once again, sincere apologies for the late response. All right. Seeing that we may have a little delay in class, I just want to overall run through. We've been assured by our mentors that they'll be joining as soon as possible. So I just want us to run through a few things, right? Before class officially starts. Once again, sincere apologies. We have to go through this route. All right. So I would like to just maybe in the next 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, I would like to just give us the opportunity to overall, just describe our experience in the program so far. We've gone through, well, technically we're in the 6th week of our program. We've gone through 5 weeks already of just interest training in our different courses. So for maybe a random pick of, let's say, 3 or 4 people, I would just want to overall get to hear our experiences, how overall we have enjoyed the program, which course. Okay, so this is the format I would want us to take. You can just kindly let us know which course you are currently under. or which of our courses you're currently under, how has the experience been so far, and yeah, just overall, just those two, which course you are on, your name, which course you are on, and how has your experience been so far. So I would be randomly picking three people to do that. So please, as much as you can, just to make sure that we have an initial interaction until we commence the session. So I think I would want to start with Favor Ogbona. Please, can you just kindly tell us your name, which course you are currently taking, and how the experience has been so far? Favor, can you hear me? Okay. If Favor cannot hear me, Grace, please, can you hear me? Oyedele, Grace, can you hear me? Are we in class? Can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, still just randomly calling people. I guess some of us are not necessarily very close to our phones. Uduak Edet, please can you just kindly let us know your name, which course you are under, and how has the experience in the program or your experience in the program been so far?
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Edith
Yes.
Uduak Tim, and I am under the Entertainment and Business Law course. So far, my experience with the Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program has been very insightful. I would say that this week has actually been my favorite, especially the first session we had this week on human rights and business law, I believe. I really enjoyed learning about the um, human rights protection aspect of law and just about the music industry, the movie industry, even the content creation industry. There's a lot of work for lawyers to do in those aspects. And it was really interesting to learn about it and its relation with the law and everything. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Um, Good work for running us through your experience. We'll still just take maybe one or two people, and then I guess by then we'll be able to officially kickstart the program. Okay, I'll be going next to just to Openiko, right? If I got your name correct, please would also like to hear from you, share your experience with us.
Um, Good morning, sir. Good morning,
Yes, good
everyone.
morning.
My name is
Good
Okwemifo
morning.
Adereti, and I am in the Intellectual Property Law Mentorship Program under the JIIPCC or JIIPCC. And my experience with the program has been quite interesting. The weekly tasks are the weekly tasks are really motivational, a bit motivational, and they're very insightful, as Edith said. Um, it's been nice. I think my favorite week so far has been the one on content creation, and also the one on image rights and personality rights. That one, yeah, that one on sports and business law. So, and this week has also been very nice with the as it seems we're branching out, not just in our own mentorship section.
All right, thank you very much, Openiko, for that. We'll be taking one more person. So just to maybe get a male a male figure this time, Richard, if you're with us, please can we get your feedback on how the program has been for you, which course you're under, and just overall just introduce us with your name. Hello, Mr. Richard, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Good day.
All right, good day.
I didn't get the question, sir.
Yes, so the question is overall, you can just let us know your name, which course you are in, and how has the program been for you so far?
Okay, my name is Richard Iheanacho. I registered for the data protection class, and thus far this initiative by the organization has been quite helpful and insightful. I got to expand my knowledge. I got to do something different, which is presenting. So it helped me go out of my comfort zone and do something I usually run from. So I could not necessarily run from this. So it's has expanded my knowledge, brought me out of my comfort zone, and made me more equipped to move forward in my legal career.
All right, thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much. Yes, so we'll be taking quick pictures quickly. Let's kindly take our pictures quickly. Sorry that we are trying to steal class. I'm still just trying to follow up with our mentors to make sure that we get them on board. So sorry about that. We sincerely we sincerely appreciate your patience. So please let's quickly turn on our videos quickly for our pictures so that we don't get to rush that later on. Right, thank you everyone. I am sure it is daytime where you are, so I expect that we have quite a number of people who are able to do that. I'll just give us, let's say, 5 minutes to get that done. Let's quickly turn on our videos, everyone, please, if you can. Thank you, Kaima. Thank you, in your life, I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Jumoke. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Afeniko. Thank you, Joshua. All right, so okay. All right, so yes, I have taken our pictures. All right, so sorry once again. Still trying to make sure that we try as much as possible to get our mentors on the call. Still sorry about the delay. So what we'll be doing back right now, we'll be reverting back to our presenters. Let's quickly take presentations. Once again, sincere apologies for the delay. We will honestly get to class. So please, our presenter for today, Teslima, let's get straight to your presentation. We'll start out with your presentation and then we'll move over to the mentors when they get on call. So, Teslima, please, you can go ahead and introduce yourself. I will help you share your slides. Hello, presenter, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, good afternoon, or good morning, rather.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm Teslima, and I'll be presenting for Group 2 today. So, the topic for this week's presentation is fundraising for startups. So generally, we're going to look at government grants and funding, debt financing, strategic partnerships, pitching to investors, and investor due diligence. So the first one, which is government grants and public funding. So these programs are tools for promoting entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic development, particularly in emerging economies like Nigeria. So these government grants are non-repayable, unlike loans. So this makes them highly attractive to startups generally. Now, government funding programs are designed to achieve broader objectives like job creation, youth empowerment, financial inclusion, and development of priority sectors. Because there are different types of government grants that they make available to business owners. So the types of government grants in Nigeria, we have federal government grants, for example, CBN, that's Central Bank of Nigeria. We have BOI and SMEDAN. We also have presidential conditional grant scheme and so on. Also, there are youth and innovative grants, one for people that are within the ages of 18 to 35. That's the YEIDP. There is Student Venture Capital Grants, which targets youth-led and tech-driven innovations. Also, there are public and private partnership grants. For example, Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, FGN Alerts Digital Skill Innovation Program. The fourth one is sector-specific grants. Those ones are targeted at agriculture, technology, fintech, manufacturing, and creative industries. So what are the eligibility criteria and the application process? The eligibility criteria is that for anybody to apply for a business grant, that person's business has to have a legal status. It must be registered under the CAC. The person must be a Nigerian citizen and must reside in Nigeria and should also possess NIN. The person must have a clear and viable business plan. The business must align with government priority sectors. And the business should have a demonstrated economic impact potential. Also, the business must have a financial or operational capacity. For the application process, the first step is that anybody that wants to apply for business grants for his or her business should identify relevant funding programs. Second step is to review eligibility requirements carefully. Third step is to prepare documents such as CAC certificates, business plan, IDs such as NIN and so on. The fourth step is to submit those documents via official portals or partner platforms. The fifth one is screening and evaluation. That is where the person's documents are going to be screened to know if they will be feasible for the grant. Then the sixth step is pitch before a panel where required, because in certain circumstances, pitching might not be required. So that's all for that. Now, I'll be moving on to debt financing, the forms of borrowing, repayment obligations, and strategic implications. So, forms of debt financing. The first one is term loans. These are fixed amounts from the banks or governments, and they require collateral and predictable repayment schedule. The second form of debt financing is lines of credit. Lines of credit are flexible and there is only interest on the amount used for the business, and they are useful for short-term cash flow gaps. Also, they can be revolving. The third one is convertible debt. This one starts as loans, then they convert to equity in a future round. They delay valuation and they are popular with angels or VCs. Number 4 is venture debt. Venture debts are for venture-backed startups. They complement equity. They may include warrants and they are self-dilutive than equity. Fifth one is invoice financing. Here, they borrow against unpaid invoices. They improve cash flow quickly and they are common in B2B startups. So what are the implications of debt financing? The first one is repayment obligations. Generally, debt must be repaid regardless of the performance of anybody's business. The second one is interest costs. So debt financing increases total financial burden and it reduces profitability over time. The third one is no ownership dilution. So founders retain full ownership and control, which is a key advantage over equity financing. Risk of default. Failure to pay these debts may lead to penalties, assets lost, or bankruptcy if collateral is involved. Cash flow impact. Regular repayments limit funds for operations, hiring, or expansion. Then creditworthiness. Responsible use of these loans build credibility. Excessive debt deters future investors. That's all. The third part of this presentation is strategic partnerships and corporate investment. So this is basically how startups attract and structure corporate investment relationships. The primary objectives are two: revenue expansion, then cost and risk sharing. So revenue expansion leverages the corporate partners' IP, distribution networks, brand strength, and customer base to accelerate market penetration. Costs and risk sharing. It jointly undertakes capital-intensive or uncertain initiatives, and it reduces the financial burden on the startup. So how do startups attract corporate investment? Number one is that they enter through pilot projects, product integrations, accelerator programs, and industry networks. Second one is that they demonstrate measurable outcomes, revenue growth, operational efficiencies, successful product development. The third one is the position as an indispensable strategic asset aligned with the corporate long-term objectives. Fourth one is that they define clear governance structures, intellectual property rights, and dispute resolution mechanisms. Then the last one is they monitor KPIs continuously to evidence traction and value creation. So the fourth part is pitching and presenting to investors. So here, their startups are required to build conviction through structured delivery and tailored communication to their investors. So there are 15 standard pitch deck elements, which are problem, solution, market size, business model, traction, competitive landscape, go-to-market, team, financials, and the ask. Those are the 15 standard pitch deck elements. So delivery and tailoring, how are these elements delivered and tailored? So the first one is rehearse thoroughly but avoid robotic delivery. So speak to each slide naturally. The second one is in question and answer session. Respond honestly and demonstrate genuine engagement with difficult questions. Third one is seed or angel investors focus on founder vision and market size. Growth equity investors require unit economics proof. Then the last one is tailor emphasis to each investor based on their stage focus and portfolio priorities. The fifth part of the presentation is investor due diligence, which includes types, common red flags, and how startups can prepare effectively. So there are different types of investor due diligence. First one is legal. So legal investor due diligence requires incorporation documents, CAC filings, share ownership, intellectual property assignments, and contracts. The second one is financial investor due diligence. Here we have the financial statements, the bond rates, the revenue quality, and tax compliance, e.g. CIC, VAT, and PAE. Then the third one is commercial, where we have business model viability, market position, customer concentration, product market fit. The fourth one is regulatory investor due diligence, which has to do with licenses, AML compliance, FCCPC, pension, NSITF, ITF, NDPA 2023 data protection. The next one is operational and technical investor due diligence, which contains tech infrastructure, projects, products roadmap, cybersecurity, and internal controls. Then last one is management. Management has to do with founder expertise, track record, incentive alignment, and team depth. So what are the red flags here and how are we supposed to prepare? The common red flags here include unclear or undisputed share ownership. Second one is if the IP is not formally assigned to the company. The third one is inconsistent or poorly managed financial records. Fourth one, regulatory non-compliance or missing licenses. Next one is overdependence on a single customer or revenue source. Then the last one is informal, unsigned, or poorly drafted contracts. So how to prepare investors' diligence. First one, document all shares and ownership interests properly, assign all IP to the company and not to individuals, formalize agreements with founders, staff, and vendors, maintain organized, reliable financial records, ensure regulatory and tax compliance, implement data protection frameworks, and build a structured data room with all key documents. And with that, we have come to the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Teslima, for helping us run through presentations on behalf of your group. Well done to you and to your team for putting it together. So we have Mr. Max here on the call. So we'll be going back to Mr. Max after we are done with the two groups presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Max, for joining. We are happy to have you in the session today. So our second presenter for today, Michelle, if you're with us, please, we'll be taking your presentation now.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Michelle, as already mentioned, and I'll be taking the presentation on fundraising for startups on behalf of Group 1. The core areas of startup funding. Here we have venture capital funding, otherwise known as VC funding. We have angel investors. We have crowdfunding. We have bootstrapping. We have accelerators and incubators. So I'm going to go ahead now and further explain. For venture capital funding, this is a form of financing where investors provide money to startups and small businesses that have strong growth potential but lack access to traditional bank loans. In return, the investors receive ownership shares, equity in the company. And venture capitals is commonly used by early stage companies. For the funding stages, we have the seed stage, which is the early idea and product development stage, as well as Series A, which is business launch and early growth. Series B, expansion of operations and market reach. Series C, the large-scale growth and market dominance. And then for different ways in which you can attract investors, number one would be strong and clear business ideas. It's not enough to just pitch or to just present anything. It has to be strong. It has to be clear of all ambiguities. There's a show, I can't remember the name, but usually business owners or potential business owners would pitch their ideas to prospective investors. And I think on one of the scenes, they switched it to having little children compete instead of the original owners. And that means that those owners should have been able to explain their ideas so much so that a 5-year-old can understand what this business is about. The same goes for your investor. They have to understand it to be able to see the vision, to know whether to buy into it or not. Then another way to attract investors would be high growth potential and scalability. As I already said, it's not just enough to have an idea. You have to run it through some tests to see, okay, is there actually a future in this? And to be able to convince your said investor. Another one would be good business pitch and presentation. There you can have the idea. It could be a good idea, but if you're not able to properly deliver it in order to persuade the investor, there is a high chance that they would not buy into the vision. Then the other point is evidence of traction, profit, or market demand. So in a case like this, even if you have not already started the business, there should be 1 or 2 findings that you have done to be able to persuade someone that this is worth investing in, something to show that, you know what, your money is safe with us. Then the advantages of this are large amount of capital provided, faster business growth and expansion, access to expertise, and networks. And then the disadvantage is possibly loss of partial ownership, that's equity dilution, reduced control in decision making, and that would be pressure to, sorry, I can't even see that. Okay, pressure to achieve the results. All right, and then we're moving on to angel investors, finding, pitching, and negotiating deals. Angel investors are individuals who provide capital. Please, there's emphasis on these are individuals who provide capital to early stage startups in exchange for equity. They invest not only money, but also experience, mentorship, and business connections. How do we find angel investors? Number one, personal networks, which include mentors, professors, former employers, friends of friends. You could hear someone saying, the way I got this contract is because of so and so that knows so and so. That is the summary of that highlight there. Personal networks. It could even start from a certain lecturer in school. It could even start from the friend seated beside you, or a colleague at work. Your personal network. Number two would be startup events, where you get to pitch your event. They have demo days, and then, of course, like what is happening recently, we have a lot of tech meetups. So there, as a potential business investor, of course, you say business owner, you say you're looking for angel investors. There should be an openness to go outside of your space to attend events such as this, where you would get to meet people that would be angel investors. And then number three is angel networks. We have angel groups, angel lists, and investment clubs. Sometimes you do have to know someone that can, connect you, and it still boils down to your personal networks. You have to ask questions, do your findings, involve yourself in people in the circle that does what you do, to be able to have access to these people. Then pitching to angel investors. Number one, you have to clearly explain the problem being solved. In other words, in economics, I think I'll just summarize by saying it has to be meeting a need. And that way you can easily convince someone that this investment is doing something. There's a worth of this investment. Number two, present a simple and understandable solution. I have previously explained that. Number three, we show market opportunity and scalability. This has been explained as well. Number four would be provide traction, user revenues, growth, partnerships, etc. And then number five would be honest about risks and challenges. You have the duty to disclose risks and challenges in your business in good faith. That is when you are dealing with a potential angel investor. You have that duty. And when negotiating deals, number one, you have to understand valuation, but prioritize good investor fit. Number two, equity is valuable. Avoid giving away too much early. So in as much as you're sharing, you're pitching your idea, you have to be careful how much of that information you give to this person who has not yet invested. That is one way of protecting your idea, your intellectual property per se. Number three, know your market value and comparable deals. Number four, take time before signing agreement, which is very, very important. Usually, you'd be advised to seek legal counsel before you say yes to anything at all. Number five will be seek investors who add long-term value beyond money. So it's beyond just needing an investor, somebody that will give you the money to start your business. No, sometimes some of the businesses that we see today that are doing well, if you check very well, there's a good sort of a fluid relationship with the investors. You have to also consider the relationships of the people that you intend, or rather, you have to consider the people that you intend to build your relationship with in regards to your business. Then number 3, crowdfunding for startups. Crowdfunding is a way startups raise capital by collecting small contributions from many individuals through online platforms, which we see on a day-to-day basis on social media. It allows entrepreneurs to present ideas to a large audience and receive funding without traditional financing sources. It also helps validate ideas and build early customer bases. Now, for crowdfunding platforms, we have Kickstarters, creative projects, reward-based fundings, all or nothing models. We have Indiegogo, flexible or fixed funding options. We have GoFundMe, which is very popular, by the way, donation-based platforms for social or community projects. And then we have Seed Invest, equity crowdfunding, where investors receive ownership status, stakes. Yes, then tips for successful crowdfunding. Clear and compelling story about the idea and problem solved, which is very similar to what was already discussed in regards to angel investors. Number 2, high quality videos, images, and product demonstrations. Because then again, remember that you're presenting it to people you have never met, will probably never meet, and they have to understand. The same with your investors. It's like a PowerPoint presentation per se, but it goes deeper than that. You should be able to sell the story, sell the idea through the only platform you have, which is whatever social platform, online platform you'll be using to the public. Then you have to have realistic funding goals and clear use of funds. People that would invest want to know, where is their money going? What is their money going towards to? What is it going to do? How is it going to help this and that? So there should be a clear communication of what you would need this for. Finally, promotion through social media and, of course, email marketing and early support before launch to build momentum. You cannot want to launch tomorrow and you're talking about it, maybe let's say yesterday. Most likely, it won't work. Then legal consideration. Number 1, equity crowdfunding involves security regulations. Number 2, disclosure requirements and investor limits may apply. Number 3, intellectual property protection before public exposure. Number 4, delivery obligations in reward-based crowdfunding. And number 5, possible tax obligations depending on the jurisdiction. Over to bootstrapping. What is bootstrapping? This is starting and growing a business using personal savings, business revenue, and minimal expenses instead of external funding. So this funding comes from within you. It allows founders to retain full control and ownership, but limit resources and increase personal financial risk. Most startups begin with bootstrapping before seeking external investors. What are the stages of bootstrapping? Number 1, beginner stage. Using personal savings or support from friends, founders may still have another job. And I believe this is very relatable. Imagine saying you want to start a puff-puff business and you are working a 9 to 5. From your salary, you have a savings box, or you're using PiggyVest where you're just, keeping some 1,000, 10K, 2025, and you decide that you're going to start up in the month of June. When you do that whole process before June and June itself, you get your venue or whatever. That whole process is what I'm explaining here as the beginner stage of bootstrapping, using your personal fundings and savings, etc. Number 2, customer funded stage. Now businesses runs, and this business will now run and grow using money from customers or clients. So here the business has already begun. Then number 3, credit stage. Business uses loans or now seeks external funding like venture capital for expansion. But take note that the business has already begun. Number 2, we're talking and focusing on bootstrapping strategy. Number 1 is focus on solving a specific problem. Number 2, reinvest profits into the business. Number 3, seek mentors and experienced guidance. This cannot be overemphasized. Number 4, use personal networks and contacts effectively. Number 5, operate with minimal cost and careful spending. Because now remember, most of the money comes from you. And finally, in the Nigerian context, often the default due to high interest bank loans, and this is often the default, due to high interest bank loans and limited VC access. That's why I said this is like the most relatable stage of fundraising for startups. Number 2, many founders use side jobs to fund businesses. Again, very relatable. Number 3, customer funded growth through pre-orders or deposits. And then number 4, lean operations, which include co-working spaces, online work, freelancers. And then number 5, growing focus on profitability before VC funding. In conclusion, startups have multiple funding options, and each method provides a different path to building and growing a business. Understanding these options enables founders to make informed financial decisions and choose the most suitable approach for developing and sustaining their ventures. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle, for running us through your presentation. Well done to you and to your team members for putting it together. So yeah, well done to everyone who was involved in preparing that presentation. So just before we bring up our mentor, I want to kindly encourage us to try as much as possible to pay attention in the session. The session has been put together to generally cover the area for those who may want to go into business and maybe thinking about how to fund their businesses, or if you are if you are for performing in the role of a legal for a business startup, how do you advise your clients on fundraising, right? This is the reason why we have put this particular class together. So we know that funding is really a big issue for quite a lot of people who may want to go into a venture but are finding it difficult to raising the capital for it. So we want to hear from Mr. Max Ikombe, share with us just basically from both a very legal perspective and from a business side to things, how realistic it is to raise money. How can people actually raise money for their businesses? Mr. Max, if you're with us, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start first of all by apologizing for joining late. I assumed the class was 2 o'clock because typically I think most of our other Saturday classes are 2 o'clock. So I had already programmed my mind that the class was 2 o'clock. But thanks to Sophie who prompted me. So I apologize for that. And then also my background is a little, I suspect, noisy because I'm kind of out and about, but I believe we should be able to make some progress. And then, if I'm correct, this is the last class for the fintech group, right?
It's a combined class for both fintech and other courses.
Oh, another courses. Oh, okay. Oh, that's wonderful. So let me congratulate all the mentees as well for going through the process even up to this point. And of course, I can't congratulate you without thanking JIIPCC for putting this together and for the consistency over the years. I think it's very important that young professionals or professionals who are starting out in these areas that before now were not like mainstream in this, in the continent, are given the opportunity to come together in a structured place to learn, to meet mentors. But importantly, like I always say, when I have the opportunity, I tell people, just know that the opportunity JIIPCC gives is not just about the mentors alone. Your fellow mentees that you are meeting is deepening your network and your pool of your social and professional pool. So that's also very important, because I tell people at the end of the day, in professional settings, people typically work with people based on relationship, not necessarily just competence. So it is a person who knows you, who becomes a founder tomorrow, who becomes a general counsel, who would engage you to come and provide services to his company. And also networking with your own fellow mentees is also as important as meeting and knowing the mentors as well. So now focusing on the topic for today, fundraising. Of course, if you had followed my class, for those who have been in the fintech class, there's something I've always emphasized, which is that fintechs or startups generally have, a unique issue, which is the issue of funding. And why that, and why they have that unique issue is because, unlike established businesses that have many lines of raising funds for their business, startups and typically fintechs do not have those same opportunities, because as a startup you don't ordinarily immediately have the kind of asset base that is needed to raise particularly debt financing, because and then of course sometimes you don't have the proof of concept to the stage where even you can raise alternative funds or forms of financing. So for startups and fintechs, learning about fundraising is always important. In fact, a good chunk of the work that startups and fintechs do, apart from the technical competence in terms of the actual service delivery that they bring to the market, is actually how to sustainably raise funding in a way that keeps, helps your business to grow, to scale, and then of course to pivot and explode. So if you do not, you may have the best product, you have the best solution, you have the best pitch deck, you have everything. If you do not know and understand how the funding process works, you might start quickly, expand, scale, but instead of exploding, you implode. That means the business fails quickly because the funding was not right. And that is where I want to focus on. I've listened to your presentations and I was quite happy. First, when I heard from Sophie that I was going to be the only mentor on the call, I felt a little sad, because I've had I've had the privilege of joining this same funding class with other mentors who are specialists in funding, specialists, for instance, in social enterprise funding and all of that. And I really love the perspective they are able to bring. So I felt, oh, you guys were missing out on something. But listening to your presentations, I was quite delighted that you guys may have missed out on it, but your research clearly showed that you have done some good work and you actually have given yourself a broad base. So I commend both teams. I listened to your presentations. You truly covered the field with respect to the actual rudiments of, what is needed to raise funds for a fintech startup and to help that fintech startup scale. So what I want to do now is just to point out a few issues that can become a problem that, a fintech needs to have in mind. Otherwise, your fundraising efforts, no matter how good they are, will end up, not helping you if you do not look at some of these issues. The first one, which is a critical issue, is the issue of a co-founders agreement. Increasingly now, funders, as part of their due diligence, one of the greatest diligence they do now is not just about the due diligence of the legal, the financial, and all of that. Now they also want to do, a due diligence on the person of the founders, including reputational risk. So I mean, most of us who follow the fintech space would of course know about the very major issue that happened. I think it was in a, what they call it now, in a Flutterwave, where one of their founders was suspended. The matter, threatened to become a litigation. I understand that they have been able to manage to get some sort of settlement in place, even though, it became a serious issue for the fintech and even for the people who had investors who had invested in the fintech, just because, some tweets were dug up where the founder said some things, and, had issues with somebody, social media and all that, because reputational risk has become a huge, huge, huge factor now. So it therefore means that, for a fintech or a startup, in addition to doing all your other due diligence, you must also maintain reputational due diligence on the founders. So because the reason I say that is that when investors come, they are not only checking out your legals, they're not only checking out your financials, they're not only checking out your technical, they're also going to check out the founders to know who they are. They're going to do run background check on them, check what they have been tweeting, what they have been putting out on social media, what is out there about them, because they know that they can put in their funds and then everything is going well, the business is scaling, income is coming in, revenue is good, the company is beating all financial expectations, and then one scandal comes up, and that scandal alone can become what will ruin everything. So these are the little things that people do not pay attention to, but that has become important. As part of your funding strategy, you must do that reputational due diligence on the founders. Now, that is the first aspect of it. The second aspect of it is also is that funders now and investors are now wary of co-founders disputes, because those disputes can tear the company apart. So it therefore means that another important document that any investor wants to see is the co-founders agreement or any other key man agreement you have. So of course, the first is typically if most, of course, one of the things that stands fintechs out or startups to get funding is that you must have a co-founder. They want to be sure that this is not a one-man show, and that even if something happens to one of the key people, there's 2 or 3 other people in the business who started it together, who have the same vision, who are able to run it and bring it to that point where it scales and it begins to expand. So typically a one-man startup is going to struggle more to get funding. So because of that, some startups are a one-man startup, but just because they want to make themselves attractive for funding, they simply slap the label of co-founders on some of the other key men, who are in the business, who are not really a co-founder in that sense. I mean, of course, there's no law that says who a co-founder is, and there's even no agreement that says who a co-founder is. Anybody who says a co-founder can be a co-founder, but really, in the real sense of it, a co-founder should be someone who had the same vision, at the startup. People who join later, technically, are not really co-founders. People who simply bring in some level of money are not necessarily really co-founders. Co-founder is somebody who also brought in sweat equity, who also has, been part of developing when you break down that business, the core component of that business that makes it profitable. That person must have contributed some sort of idea, something that, put together that core business concept before the fintech or startup started growing together. But like I said, there's no hard and fast rule. Anybody can be you can choose to label anybody a co-founder, but be careful you label a co-founder because of the first thing I said. So that means even if you are starting up a fintech or a startup, if you are getting co-founders, you should even also do some level of reputational due diligence on that co-founder. But the important point I'm making with this second point now is that because of the risk of co-founder disputes and the fact that co-founder disputes are difficult to resolve. Other disputes are easy to resolve because you can simply say, okay, one person, is right, the other person is not right. Give this money to this person and all that. But when a person is a co-founder, he owns, for instance, sometimes some of the key intellectual property that is, what is powering that business. So how do you share that without tearing the company apart? So that is why co-founder disputes can be very troublesome. So the way to avoid, or at least mitigate co-founder disputes, is to ensure that there's a co-founders agreement, and that agreement makes certain things clear, that the moment the company has gotten to a certain stage, everybody who was part of contributing intellectual property that made the business, they made of that basic business proposition that the business is running on, ensure that everybody transfers their IP to the company. So even if there's a dispute and anybody leaves the company, he's not tearing a part of the very fundamental intellectual property that the business proposition is running on. So that is one of the things that a co-founders agreement does. A co-founder agreement also contains several other things. Most of us, for instance, have watched the movie about the founders of Facebook. So one of the key problems we have in fintech and startup space is that maybe 3 or 4 of you start up a business while you were in school. Now, when you were in school, your parents were sustaining you. So because of that, the business was just a side hustle. Even if it failed, it was not a big deal. So everybody was putting their back into it, getting the business up and running. When maybe by the time you guys graduate, you are finished NYC, suddenly life hits. One of the co-founders' parents says, look, this your side hustle you are doing is not making any sense. Come on, let's take you to Canada to go and further your education. And he leaves for Canada. Somebody else maybe gets married, relocates out. And then one person out of the 3 is now left pushing the business on. But the others have not, they only left, but they didn't leave in paper in terms of, for instance, you did not change your company documents to remove them as shareholders. They remain as shareholders. The business is not working out. And then suddenly the business has a break. And then the person who has been in Canada comes back and says, look, I still own 30% of this company. The person who got married and relocated comes back and says, look, I still own 30% of this company. And then the person who has been working, who says, look, but I'm the one who has been here putting the sweat. This business has come to what it has become because of my sweat, not because of the little effort you gave when we were in school. So that becomes a dispute. So part of what the co-founders agreement also should do is to dictate, the circumstances around, if somebody becomes inactive in a business and his equity is still there, what happens to his equity? You could, of course, also have what we call a vesting schedule in your co-founders agreement that makes it clear that, look, the shares that is given to the co-founders at the beginning is given to them potentially, and then there'll be a vesting schedule that says, level of commitment, targets that they must meet over the period of time to earn those shares. So the typical way vesting schedule works, the most simple one is typically what we call a 4-year vesting schedule with a cliff. So what that simply means is that if we start a business together and I've been given 20% of the equity in that business, we can make it a condition that for me to earn or to become entitled to that entire 20% of the shares, I must meet certain criteria and I must make commitment over a certain period of time. So, for instance, if it's a time-based thing, it simply means that if I'm committed to the business of the company, for each year that I commit myself to the business of the company, a quarter of my shares will vest in me and become my shares absolutely. So with the 20% example, it simply means that for every year of commitment, 5% of that, my 20%, will become my shares. So after year one, even though I'm potentially entitled to 20% of the shares of the company, but after year one, what I would actually own is 5% of that 20%. So if I leave after year one, or based on the agreement, my commitment drops below the agreed level, then I would only be entitled to 5%. If I leave after year two, then 10%. If I leave after year three, 15%. If I leave after year four, then the entire 20% becomes my own absolutely. So those are some of the ways you ensure that you put a balance between commitment to the business of the company long term and also ensuring that nobody's also cheated out. So you can see that these things are quite complicated. They are complex. They are not very simple and straightforward. So sometimes it's not even about time alone. If I'm the chief marketing officer, for instance, as one of the co-founders, one of the target may be that if our fintech hits 100,000 downloads on the app stores, then automatically my vesting schedule would accelerate. So even if I've only done 2 years, but I've hit 100,000, then automatically all of my 20% becomes vested immediately. So there are many ways to negotiate them. But what is important is that these things must be negotiated and documented, because any serious investor who comes in, if he does not see these things documented clearly, then he knows already that that's a red flag, because already that is a potential issue of a founder's dispute arising, which, of course, like we've already mentioned, can be very destructive to the overall growth of the business in the long term. So I just thought to draw attention to some of these very important issues. Maybe during the question and answer, we'll dig in a little bit more. Or Dennis, do I have more time? If I have more time, I'll quickly touch a little bit about debt versus equity. Raising capital, debt versus equity, a few of the things you need to bear in mind. And then I also want to talk a little about what we call a simple agreement for future equity, which is I'll say a financial engineered type of convertible equity arrangement that also suits fintechs a lot. So Dennis, can I take 10 more minutes to do that, or maybe we'd let the interaction start?
Yes, sir, please. You can take up to 15 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me dive in that. So I think it was group 2. I was listening to your presentation, and you mentioned, you talked about this issue of debt and equity, and it's true. It's a very important issue for fintechs and startups. The issue of debt versus equity, which is the best way to raise capital. Like you already mentioned in your presentation, and you are very right about that. Of course, with debt, there's already a challenge, because with debt, you are going to need to have, assets to be able to use as a collateral for that debt. So typically for fintechs, it's not easy. But the good thing about debt is that ideally, any any startup founder would prefer to do debt, because debt means that you retain control of your company. You are not giving anybody a share in your company. You are simply taking money, paying the money back with interest. But the challenge with that is, if you do not have assets, collateral to back up that debt, you rarely find anybody willing to give you debt. Now, equity on the other side is a lot easier, because with equity, you don't need a collateral in that sense. By the agreement itself, the risk you are taking in terms of sharing your ownership with the person becomes, in a sense, the collateral you are giving. But of course, so the challenge with that is that once you give, you raise capital through equity, you are losing control. Your power over the company is getting diluted, because all the people who give you money are also becoming co-owners and now have a say in how the business will be run. So you can see that there's that tension. So which is the best? Necessarily, we won't say any one is better than the other. It's about timing, it's about purpose, it's about the stage your business is currently at. So there are the stage your business is at where debt works, there's a stage where equity works. But there's something called convertible debt, which is actually a very good way to go for fintech and startups, because that is kind of helping you combine the best of both worlds. You are getting the control that debt capital gives you, while you are also getting the flexibility that equity capital gives you when you do a convertible debt type of capital raise. So let me explain what that simply means. We have already made it clear that in debt financing, you are taking money, and it means that you must pay back that money. So if your business fails or it doesn't do well, that's not the problem of the lender. He just wants his money back with his interest. So that's the element of risk and danger with debt capital. But with equity, the investor is coming alongside you, also becoming a co-owner and taking the risk that if the business fails, then his money would also go down the drain. So of course, that is the tension between the two. But with a convertible debt structure, what you are doing is that you are saying, look, give me money. The money is going to be, first of all, taken as a debt to be repaid back with interest. However, based on how it is structured, if we meet certain parameters and all, that debt can become equity. So I don't have to pay back the money with the interest. Rather, you simply get an ownership stake in the business. So that's the simple way to describe what a convertible debt, how a convertible debt works. So you can see that even with that model, it already gives some sort of flexibility and room for comfort for a fintech or a startup founder. But the gold standard currently in the startup world is something designed by, of course, we know them, the very popular startup accelerator Y Combinator. So they looked at all of these different tensions and came up, because a lot of things come into negotiating even a convertible debt to equity and all, valuation and so many other things. And of course, valuation is expensive. It's not something that is very easy for fintechs to do at the time. So they came up with an agreement model. So it's not just an agreement. I'll call it an agreement model, or I'll call it sort of I could almost refer to it as a financial infrastructure that they came up with, because it's more than just an agreement. It's about a whole system that has been built around how this model works. But in simple terms, it's called a SAFE. That is a simple agreement for future equity. How it works is on the same model I mentioned to you earlier of a convertible debt. So the investor is giving the money to you as a debt, but the investor is under obligation to convert that debt into an equity at a pre-agreed valuation model at a point in time. So let me give a simple example. So when the investor is coming into your business, you can say, look, at that point, you take an arbitrary figure that both of you agree. This business is currently worth $10 million, for instance, and you are bringing in $1 million. That $1 million at that point immediately is considered a debt given to the company. Then at the future time, based on certain parameters that have been met, that $1 million and the interest that are accrued on it will be converted to equity. But it will be converted to equity based on the value of the company at the date of conversion. So understand why that is important now. If it was converted to equity immediately, the man gave you the $1 million, that would mean immediately that man owns 10% of your company, which dilutes your ownership rights to the company. But if it is converted in 5 years' time, and as at that 5 years' time, your company has become what, say, $50 million, then his 1 million naira plus maybe, let's say another 1 million has come in as interest on it. His 2 million will be converted to equity based on the valuation, the current valuation of 50 million. That will now entitle him to only get, okay, let me use 100 million, sorry. So if you are valued at 100 million, it means that when his 2 million is converted in 5 years' time, he would only take 2% of your company as opposed to having taken 10% of your company. So you can see how that gives the best of both worlds. For you, the business owner, it doesn't dilute your shares too much. For him, the investor, also, it means that he's now owning 2% of a company that is worth 100 million instead of, so it still gives him some measure of comfort. So you can see how that engineered solution can be the best of both worlds for both parties. Of course, the safe agreement itself is not perfect. It still has its own issues, like I said, valuation issues and all of that can still arise, but it's near perfect because it gives both parties what they want. It gives the investor the confidence that if you simply squander his money and all, then he can come after you and get it back along with interest as a debt. But he also gives you the confidence that if you meet your targets and hit your projections, then automatically it becomes equity at a lower value and there's less dilution of your ownership and control of the company. So this also is another very important tool. But then again, note a few things about the safe. Now, people use safe all over the world and it works. But you need to know that, like I explained to you, the safe is not just an agreement. It's a financial engineered infrastructure built on a system in a particular location because the laws in that place work in a certain way. And that place actually is a place in the US called Delaware. So the laws and the courts in that system interpret the agreement in a unique way. And that is what gives it that unique edge. And that is why it can work there. So if you bring a safe agreement to another country, it might not work exactly the way you expect it to work because the law and how the judges will interpret it might be different. So the best way a safe works is it works under the law of Delaware in the US. And that is why typically, if you are going to employ the safe, then the investor is going to ask that you do a Delaware flip. That means you switch the ownership of the company to a holding company registered in Delaware in the US, so that if there's any dispute on interpreting that safe agreement, it will be done by the courts in Delaware. So how do you do a Delaware flip? It's simple. Your company is registered in Nigeria, is operating in Nigeria. So when the investors come in, you and the investors register a new company in Delaware in the US. That new company will buy up and own the Nigerian company 100%. Then if you and the investors agree to do a 60-40 equity split, that 60-40 equity split will now be done in the holding company in Delaware. So what it means, therefore, is that 100% of the profits made by the Nigerian company will be sent back to Delaware and shared based on the sharing formula of 60-40 in the Delaware company. So that is one of the reasons why I hear of a Delaware flip, essentially trying to move the ownership of that company to the US state of Delaware so that the laws that will apply in the event of a dispute will be the laws of Delaware. The courts that would resolve the dispute will be the courts in Delaware, and then ensure that they can resolve those disputes uniformly in a very timely fashion because the courts there have been, primed to be able to resolve these kinds of dispute. So I think with that, I'll just end my presentation and again commend all the mentees. And of course, I look forward to the interactive session. Thank you. Dennis, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Max, for helping us run through your discourse on fundraising for startups, primarily focusing on how some of these startups can get funding, what to do with investors, some of the things to look out for when preparing some of their agreements, co-founders agreements. Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting all those very important and valuable things for our mentees. So please, we don't have our second mentor on the call, right? Well, she is currently indisposed, so we will just be running through with Mr. Mark. So please, if we have any questions we'd like to ask Mr. Mark, right, please let's kindly do that as soon as possible so that we'll take questions. We'll be taking questions and then we'll call it a day in class. Do we have questions about raising funds for startups or for businesses rather in general? Do we have any other questions or do we have questions? If you have any questions, you can do so by the raise of hand or by sending your questions into the chat box. Please, we are taking questions. Let's ask questions. Like I said, you can send your questions into the chat box so that we know what you are asking. We can read out your question rather. No questions from us. Okay. All right. If there are no questions from the mentees, I think I would like to ask one question. And okay, I don't know if you'll be able to address this particular question, Mr. Marks, but I really hope you are able to. So the question is, if I want to go about getting a grant, for instance, I'm looking for a government grant for a particular idea that I have, especially as someone who maybe have not done anything in terms of it's just an idea and I'm trying to find the money for it. How do I go ahead with preparing to get that grant? Especially like I said, I don't have any structure. I just have an idea, probably just my proposals. So, but I know a lot of structures require that you have money first. You maybe already have even started doing something before they commit their money to your hands. But for me, who just has an idea and a proposal, is there a way I can go about this dilemma of not having a structure but still being able to raise money?
Okay, thank you for that question, Dennis. So I think Group 2 did a great job in providing very good context, to answer this question. So of course, the stages of fundraising as identified by Group 2 is very correct. So for a person who has an idea, there's no structure yet. You have to start with the first rung of the ladder, which is bootstrapping. It means that you would have to yourself maybe get another job and then take the funds out of that you used to now develop that idea, get the idea to at least a stage where you have expressed the idea. And the reason why it is important is for those who are in the intellectual property class, we've mentioned this several times. The law does not protect bare ideas. So even intellectual property law, the fact that you had an idea and then you see somebody else implementing it, you can't come and say, this was my idea, or this person has stolen my idea. There's nothing so-called. It is only when you have put your idea into a form, you have developed it at least to a form. That is the only time you can lay claim, you can even begin to think of getting any sort of intellectual property right. So when an idea is still at idea stage, there's no protection for it at that point. What you must do at that point is you must use your own funds, or you could also get friends and family interested to help you develop that idea. But at least before you start the formal process of getting funding or approaching any potential investors, you must have gotten the idea to at least what we call the MVP stage. The minimum viable product at least should be sort of in place. I mean, before that point, you could also, and I think it was Group 2 or was it Group 1 who also mentioned angel investors. And maybe this just draws my attention to say something about that. In as much as we have angel investors, please let us also note that we also have demon investors. We have people who are going to come to you as angels, but they are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are just there to steal your idea. So we have had that happen many times where people come, claim they are angel investors. They come to help you refine your business model, and all they are doing is just to come and get you to open up to them your business model, and they steal it and they run and so sometimes, so there's even a case I've handled where what happened essentially was that a company actually had a particular problem. And because they didn't want to pay a consultant to solve that problem, they set up a job interview. And then they gave, before the job interview, certain context and said, look at this case study and you'll be asked questions about it during the interview. What they gave as a case study was actually a live issue they were facing, and they didn't want to pay a consultant to solve it for them. And they thought a good way to solve that problem was to simply get free advisory. So they brought in people who, they gave the impression they're coming for a job interview, and they began to ask them questions and get them to brainstorm to, get ideas out of those people as well. So the bottom line I'm just saying is that in as much as we have angel investors, we also have demon investors. We have people who are just there to steal your ideas. So it's not just every angel investor you open up to. You need to also do your due diligence and really be sure the person has a track record, of being an angel investor, and it's not just an opportunist who is trying to use that, opportunity to come and steal ideas off people as well. So you must start, with bootstrapping. If you have an idea and you have not really put the idea into a form where there's any structure around it yet, you start with bootstrapping. From bootstrapping, of course, you can do family and friends. You might also do an angel investor who can help you sharpen that idea, like a mentor who can help you sharpen the idea, who can help you walk through the stage of developing that idea into a viable business proposition, and then you can build up from there. But even if you find people who want to fund you when you have simply an idea and you have not put that idea into place, you should even run, because it means that that investor is also not a savvy investor, because no investor is going to fund just a bare idea when they have, the thinking through has not done. And when we say developing an idea, what we mean is not necessarily that you must have done something big. It's about the fact that you have a structured think through of that idea. What are the opportunities in this idea? What is it solving in the market? Who are the competitors? These are the analysis you do. If you have done those analysis and you already have even a business proposition or a business plan, then you have gone beyond an idea stage. You have mapped out what are the risks of this business, and all of that. You have just sat down to give a structured think through of your idea. How will it work? Why will it not work? What are the limitations? What are the constraints? Once you have done that, then you already have structure in place. Then it means that you have gone beyond the idea stage. So when we say ideas, when the thing is still in your head, and then you have not really put it down, not put it in writing, you have not done an analysis, you have not done some even little bit of market survey to find out what is the solutions possibly in the market. How can my own product, beat those solutions? Can I cut down on cost? Can I deliver faster? Can I, bring a new innovation or something that stands out my project? So if you have done even those basic analysis and put it in writing, then you have gone beyond the idea stage. You are ready to move on to the next stage. Thank you, Dennis. I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Max. Yes, it does. So in the absence of any questions, right, if we don't have any other questions to ask, I think we'll be drawing a curtain on the class today. I want to say a big thank you to both presenters, the presenter for Group 1 and Group 2, for giving us a run through, breaking through the icebreaker, letting us know how to raise from the different stages in fundraising, the pre-seed stage, and all that. So well done to them. Thank you also, Mr. Max, for running us through. Okay. Mabasi, I can see you're saying you have a question. You can go ahead and ask your question before we round up with the class.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, rather. I had network issues at some point, but I listened to the presentation. But in all of this, I just want to know if the whole stages, the investors, the kind of investors, and then all of that, are we strictly talking about investing into, like, how to invest or start a fintech, or can we borrow some of these ideas into, like, looking for sponsors and investors to support a project, just a small project? Or is it just all about fintechs? That's what I want to know.
Oh, okay. So it is not okay. Go ahead, Mr. Max.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so a great question, and that's why I said I almost felt sad that some of the other mentors could not join. I've had the opportunity of listening to some of the other mentors on this same class in the other cohorts, and one of the things that we had then was we also had mentors who presented not even for for profit. They're presented for social capital, raising, for even NGOs and charitable causes and all of that. So, yeah, so, I mean, these principles we have given actually work across board. So it's more than just about fintechs and startups. It can work in other industries that are not even fintech or even startup related. Even for established businesses, they still go through some of this process, because even if you're an established business, you are going to do product development. You are going to launch new divisions of your business. You are going to try to bring your business into new markets. You still have to go through some of this route. Of course, you might not go through it exactly this way, but even for a single project, yes, these principles still work, because any project you are doing is trying to deliver a service. Essentially, you are trying to bring a benefit, and you are saying, I can bring this benefit, in a way that would, make sort of make a return. Let me use that word, because sometimes it's not really about making profit per se, but it's about doing something in a way that brings a benefit that is unique from others. So you can use the same principle. So I mean, for instance, thinking through a project, having a budget, and thinking through what are the risks, what would make it work, what would not make it work, and developing, a sort of a business proposition or a business plan, or a business outline, also works even in just a one-off project. You're trying to raise money to do something, a proper structured think through, and some of these principles we have mentioned can also be the solution for you cracking that particular challenge and getting your project done. So it works even in social relationships, in families. You're trying to do birthday, you're trying to do a family reunion or something. These principles also largely would still, help out, even though that is not like something that they say return on investment, in terms of you are not giving money back, but to put up an event that would give everybody who attends a one-off experience. You can use this process also to raise funds for that purpose as well. So these principles, cut across board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Max, for addressing that. So the idea of the class is not just a fintech thing, right? It cuts across board, and the principles, like Mr. Max has mentioned, can work irrespective of the industry, right? So please, we want to encourage you. We'll be sending the mentees presentation to every group. You can read through it in your own personal time and see some of the key points they highlighted. Generally, for those who may have ideas that they are looking to fund and looking to fund and raise capital for, right, you can look through some of the materials to see how best to go about that. So thank you everyone for being here in class. We've come to the end of today's session, or not today's session, this morning session. We still have another by 5 p.m. today. So please, you can kindly go ahead, rest, and then we'll see you later in the evening. I'm sure that by the end of the class later today, for most of us, that will be the last class we'll be having under the JIIPCC mentorship. So I expect that you take it serious. You get to learn a couple of things, and overall, when you are categorizing your experience curve for week 6, you can also include that, okay, based off of the accumulation of everything that I have learned in week 6, it has been worth my time. All right. So thank you, Mr. Marks, for making our time. Sorry about the variance in time. Probably we didn't necessarily properly communicate that to you. That's why. We'll try to work on that subsequently. Thank you so much for still making our time, irrespective of that confusion. With that, we've come to the end of this morning session. Like I said, see you all by 5 p.m. God bless.